Hey everybody, this is Dan Friedman. I'm your data center solutions engineer at Cisco, and I wanted to spend a bit of time talking to you this week about Cisco Secure AI Factory with NVIDIA. Getting right into it, not going to waste any time. The primary objective behind Cisco Secure AI Factory is to enable rapid AI adoption for enterprise customers. And there's a couple of key issues that customers are facing. The first one being infrastructure modernization, the second being AI safety and security, and the third one being a skills gap, right? As I think we're all pretty well aware of. Um, I've provided some commentary about each of these here on the slide. I don't want to read that to you, but I think this probably resonates with you as being common issues that customers are facing. Now, with regards to the Cisco and NVIDIA partnership, I would argue that this is primarily focused on networking. I say that despite clearly understanding, right, that GPUs go inside of our compute. But the things that Cisco and NVIDIA are working on together are primarily focused on networking. So before the partnership, we obviously had Cisco on Cisco and NVIDIA on NVIDIA. And so there's a couple of bullet points here that say, Cisco Silicon One ASIC on Cisco switch. So that's Cisco on Cisco. We had the NVIDIA Spectrum X ASIC on the NVIDIA switch. That's NVIDIA on NVIDIA. After this announcement, we're going to kind of cross pollinate. So we're going to have the Cisco Silicon One ASIC available on an NVIDIA switch. We're also going to have the NVIDIA Spectrum X ASIC available on Cisco switches. So I've highlighted kind of over here in green on the right. With this announcement, Silicon One has become the first and only third-party silicon included in the official NVIDIA Spectrum X architecture for AI factories. So this is a major validation of the value of the Cisco Silicon One ASIC. Down at the bottom here, I mentioned NVIDIA NCP, which stands for NVIDIA Cloud Partner, and the ERA, which stands for the Enterprise Reference Architecture. These are two different architectures. I believe NCP scales up to something like 4,000 GPUs, and the Enterprise Reference Architecture is more around 1,000 GPUs. But basically, if we look at what's going to be included in those architectures, we're going to have Cisco technologies, and that includes our switches, our Nexus line of switches, our ASICs in particular, the Silicon One, our compute, so obviously UCS, and management technologies like Intersight, along with optics. On the NVIDIA side, we're going to have the NVIDIA Spectrum X Silicon, as well as NVIDIA AI enterprise software. And so, as I was mentioning earlier, the cross-pollination from an ASIC perspective allows customers to choose the back-end network silicon technology that they want, and still maintain a common architecture, common management tools, and common processes for both their front end and their back end networks. Okay, so here's kind of a quick slide that talks about the major groundwork for Secure AI Factory. This is again referencing the new partnership between Cisco and NVIDIA. Up at the top, Cisco Silicon validated for NVIDIA's reference architecture programs. Again, both NCP and ERA. Fully validated by NVIDIA as the only third party for the Spectrum X platform. Cisco Silicon and NVIDIA NIC will support NVIDIA AI network optimizations. Agreement to co-develop a future Nexus switch with the Spectrum X ASIC, and the Cisco and NVIDIA align on a product roadmap. So we are really co-developing solutions together. We're not just bundling up NVIDIA product and reselling it. Okay, so this slide here is really kind of what I would consider the table of contents for the rest of the presentation. And so it talks obviously about key value propositions for Cisco Secure AI Factory, as well as additional talking points that I think will be important for our customers. So just to kind of go down the line and make a mental note of each of these things, because You will see each of these bullet points as headings on the upcoming slide. So I'm basically going to provide the slide-based justification for these things, right? So Cisco Secure AI Factory is intended to accelerate AI adoption with confidence and security, provide scalable, high-performance AI infrastructure, flexible deployment options, industry-leading networking and security, and of course, joint innovation with NVIDIA, which we talked about on a previous slide. Additional talking points include security as a foundation. This isn't an add-on, it's built into the network. Um, flexibility, flexible security consumption. We have several different security products that we'll go through that allow you to secure AI at different layers. Comprehensive AI infrastructure components, which we'll also review. You should already be familiar. We're primarily talking about the Nexus line of switches and UCS compute here. Support and enablement uh, options for partners, differentiation from competitors, real integration, not just marketing. And so I've kind of highlighted a few pieces of text over on the right to kind of make this drive this point home. Cisco and NVIDIA will co-innovate in order to eliminate the barriers that have held enterprises back from AI investment. And this will help prioritize customers' needs for simplified full stack solutions and give enterprises more flexibility and choice in terms of how they can meet the demands of their workloads. Okay, and then we also have customer outcomes. So, getting into these bullet points, accelerating AI adoption with confidence and security. Right now, we're seeing that about 97% of CEOs say that they're planning on integrating AI into their systems, but only 1.7% of them feel prepared to do so. And I would say that's pretty huge lack of confidence. And obviously, security is always paramount to a business. We want to help our customers protect their intellectual property and protect their brand reputation, etc. So in any case, down at the bottom we can see 96% of these organizations are relying on trusted partners like you to help future proof their network for AI purposes. Okay. And organizations are, it says, running out of time, and that, I think that really is just a reflection on the competition, right? If you're a bank and there's many banks out there, the banks that implement AI and streamline their internal operations, maximize their profit, and drive down their costs are going to outmaneuver the banks that don't. So I think that's just what it's really referring to as a competition. Okay, so in terms of what we provide for scalable high performance AI infrastructure, we'll start over here on the left, where we have our Cisco data center networking and our Cisco Silicon One Cisco optics. And then in the middle, we have Cisco unified compute and cloud management. And over on the right, we have Cisco security. On this slide, I'm really going to focus on networking and compute. So we'll talk through those, and then I've got some additional slides to cover security a little later on. So on the networking side of the house, from a management perspective, we've got Nexus Dashboard if your customer wants an on-prem management type scenario, and we have Hyperfabric if they're more inclined towards a cloud management type scenario. For compute, we have Intersight, and that handles everything. That is a cloud management solution. It handles all of your compute regardless of its location, similar to the way Hyperfabric handles all of it network regardless of its location. So from a network switching perspective, right, we support 400 gig and 800 gig backend networking. We are at some point going to come out with 1.6 terabyte backend networking. We support architectures up to 4096 GPUs. I believe that's the NCP architecture from NVIDIA. And this is in a completely non-blocking network. We also have Hyperfabric for AI and support for smart switches. And then on the compute side of the house, we've got the C885 and the C845. Both of these can take up to a maximum of 8 GPUs, but they're based on different architectures. So the C885 is a fixed configuration box, and the C845 is a PCIe-based modular box, which provides more flexibility to customers in terms of their configuration for meeting AI workload demands. So both boxes support multiple different GPU options. We have more GPU options on the way. The C885 is really geared more towards training use cases, whereas the C845, it can still do training, but it's primarily, we feel like most customers are going to leverage it for fine tuning and inferencing use cases. But that said, we do have support for the NVIDIA H100 GPU in both of these boxes. The GPU model, even though they're both an H100, they have, I would say, different, slightly different performance capabilities. I think one of them is the SXM, and I can't remember the other one. But anyway, they have different letters after the H100 that signify slightly different cards, okay, and slightly different performance capabilities. So obviously, the H100 that goes in the C885 is slightly higher performing, and the one that goes in the C845 is slightly lower performing. As I mentioned, the C845 provides a highly flexible configuration and field replaceable units. If you burn a GPU on a C885, you're basically replacing the entire GPU sled. That is not the case with the C845. So C845 has better support from a maintenance perspective than the C885 does. We also have our X series chassis. This can also support up to 8 GPU, but these are different GPU models. They're a little lower on the performance scale. I would say, I would argue, right, that there's a little bit better balance between CPU and GPU in the X series chassis than there is in the C885 and C845, which are primarily GPU. The X series is intended for smaller scale AI, and we do have a new line card coming out. I don't have an ETA on it right now, but similar to the current X440P, which hosts 2 GPUs, the 580P is expected to host 4 GPUs, and we can put 4 of those in a chassis for a total of 16 GPUs in the chassis. Okay, I mentioned flexible deployment options. So the first deployment option is basically a modular system, right? This is intended for customers that are either brownfield or greenfield type deployments. And the idea is that they will purchase individual components and put them all together. Okay, and if we start at the bottom of this slide in the middle, we can see storage options include NetApp, Pure, and VAST. VAST is primarily focused on deployments that are a petabyte of data or more. So very large data sets. Above that, we've got networking with Cisco Nexus 9000 series switches managed by Nexus Dashboard software. We also have compute, Cisco UCS, including the C885 and the C845, with NVIDIA GPUs, NVIDIA Bluefield 3 DPUs, and of course, this is compute, so it's all managed with Cisco Intersight. And then above that, we've got NVIDIA AI Enterprise software. So this stack of technologies, and I should make a quick mention of the container orchestrator, right? If you don't want to run OpenShift, then you can run something else. That's not a problem. But this entire stack of technologies basically represents an AI pod. And you'll see a comment here that AI Pods 2.0, or what we are calling AI Pods expansion, introduces this idea of an atomic unit. Okay, they're actually called scale units when we look at the AI Pods architecture. And all this really does is it makes it really easy for customers to scale out their environments and understand, at the next tier of scale, what would I be adding to my environment? How much would that cost? And, how do I basically net out the hardware? How many more GPUs would I be adding? How many more switches would I be adding? How many more compute nodes would I be adding, et cetera? So it makes scaling the environment super easy. Obviously, the overall goal of this, right over on the left side, is to input enterprise data, push that data through a generative AI model that runs atop all of this infrastructure. And then the result of that are many different use cases that we see over on the far right of this slide, including things like copilots and code generation and chatbot capability, et cetera. right? Now, we don't want to leave security out of the discussion. So, as I mentioned, there's multiple security solutions that help secure the AI environment at different levels, and we'll be talking through those in detail on an upcoming slide. They're just kind of referenced here for your convenience. Okay, the second deployment option is a vertically integrated solution. So this is for greenfield customers only, and it's based on Hyperfabric AI instead of being based on the Nexus 9000 series switches. You can see here in the middle of the slide where my mouse is moving around. For networking, we're now talking about the Cisco 6000 series of switches that are associated with the Hyperfabric solution, and this becomes cloud managed. Okay, so um, I think this is the main distinction between the two solutions. If your customer is looking for a cloud managed solution, they're going to want to go with the vertically integrated deployment option. If they're looking for an on-prem managed solution, they can go with deployment option number one that we covered on the previous slide. Other than that, pretty much everything that you see here on the slide is the same as on the previous slide. And this second deployment option is expected to go GA sometime in the September timeframe this year. Okay, in terms of industry leading networking, what does that really translate to? What does that mean? Right? I already brought up a few of these points. We have 400 gig or 800 gig backend network switches with 1.6 terabyte on the way. We have 800 gig switches that will support up to 4096 GPUs in a completely non blocking fabric. Uh, if you want to scale beyond the 4096 GPUs, then you can do a three-tier network. But at that point, you're going to have to consider how much oversubscription you're willing to tolerate, et cetera, right? Um, all of the 400 gig or 800 gig switches are intended for high bandwidth, high throughput, low latency type workload scenarios, right? Support those types of workloads. The network, as I mentioned, is completely non-blocking. It's lossless, and the way that we achieve that on Ethernet is using QoS features like ECN, explicit congestion notification, PFC, which is priority flow control, and AFD, which is approximate forward drop. Okay, we've got some materials to help you get up to speed on that if that's what you need, and then from a traffic analytics perspective, this is kind of looking at things from the Nexus dashboard insights perspective. We're able to monitor congestion and latency and drops. And as you all know, these things are extremely important to get right on the underlying network when you're supporting an AI workload, because even a single drop can basically halt a job that is distributed and running across multiple nodes and multiple GPUs, requiring you to start all over, right? And that's time and money wasted. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So on the left side of the slide, we're showing 32 to 64 port 400 gig switches. On the right side of the slide, we've got a 64 port 800 gig switch, or you could do high density 400 gig using a breakout cable, getting you up to 128 ports in just a couple of rack units of space. All of these switches support both front end and back end AI network use cases. Okay, so in terms of accelerating AI adoption with confidence and security, the primary benefit in my mind of going with a set architecture like Cisco AI Pods is the fact that you can deploy with confidence, right? This is based on Cisco CVDs. Hundreds of hours of testing and integration validation go into creating our CVDs, and it's also based on NVIDIA's enterprise reference architecture, right? So you should have confidence that the architecture that you have is going to integrate well. It's going to have compatibility. All the components are going to work with each other, and you're going to be able to scale things out relatively simply, right? Relatively easily. So here again, we see the entire stack, maybe a little bit more information about automation. Here you can see the Kubernetes layer, the container orchestrator that I mentioned before. Otherwise, this slide looks very similar to what we saw before. So just keep in mind that Cisco AI pods are based on CVDs and NVIDIA's ERA. Okay, Now, this slide starts to cover the security topics that I mentioned earlier, and it covers it from several different sort of angles, right? So, industry leading security, security as a foundation, not an add on, and flexible security consumption are all things that I said were talking points. So, I want to talk through them here. Okay, so um, basically, we can secure AI in different layers, right? We can secure AI from a software and a workload perspective, or we can secure AI from an infrastructure perspective. And we have different solutions that help us accomplish each of those things. So, starting with Cisco AI Defense up at the top, this solution is much more model focused, meaning that we are trying to help customers ensure that they have a validated and trusted model to run on the Cisco Secure AI Factory, right? On the infrastructure that we're providing. Um, the next solution that we have is Cisco Hypershield, and this is less model focused and much more workload focused. So this is all about east-west segmentation and CVE compensating controls. Um, basically, I would say more traditional security, right? And Hypershield, like all Cisco security products, are going to wrap up under secure cloud control. And the idea is that you just have a central place where you can configure all your policy, and then you can push those policies down to either hardware or software, in some cases, agents that are running inside the kernel, in order to achieve high level of security across all different layers of your infrastructure. Okay, moving on to securing AI infrastructure, we have the Cisco Hybrid Mesh Firewall. So this really is referring more to our traditional firewall portfolio. Um, we we recently have been talking about smart switches and the use cases that we're targeting for the initial release of smart switches being around layer 4 security capabilities, so just traditional firewall. And but the firewall portfolio that we're going to use in the perimeter for security is layer 7 capable, right? So these are next gen firewalls that have protocol level knowledge and understanding of application behavior, right? And so Cisco Mesh hybrid mesh firewall fits right into that traditional firewall portfolio. Smart switches is really intended for internal, non-perimeter type use cases. Okay, and then we have Cisco Live Protect, and so this is a product, and the intent here is to help protect the operating system that is running on network devices. So it's sort of similar to Hypershield, but instead of being workload focused, it is focused on the operating system of the network devices, so that if a CVE comes out and there's a vulnerability in the operating system of the network, we obviously want to patch that immediately and not leave the network vulnerable because it's supporting all of the workload traffic. Okay, so just a little bit more proactive approach here to patching the operating system, or blocking any vulnerabilities that the operating system may present. Okay, on this slide, this is just kind of a real quick breakdown, right? I mentioned comprehensive AI infrastructure components. We've already talked about some of these. So on the network side, we've got 400 and 800 gig with the quality of service features that we need to make the fabric lossless in support of AI workloads, along with traffic analytics so that we can monitor, drops and congestion, et cetera. We also have DPU enabled switches. Those are our smart switches. That's going to allow us to redirect network traffic to the DPU for security policy decision making. On the compute side, I already mentioned the C885, C845, and the X series. We have DPU enabled NICs today with the Bluefield 3. On the storage side, NetApp Pure and VAST supporting very large data sets. On the security side, we just covered Cisco AI Defense and Hypershield, along with Hybrid Mesh Firewall and Live Protect. For management, right, I mentioned that all security products are going to wrap up under security cloud control. We've got Nexus Dashboard for on-prem or Hyperfabric AI SaaS for cloud management of our network infrastructure. We have Intersight for our compute infrastructure. Then finally, we've got the NVIDIA AI Enterprise software for helping us to build and deploy our AI applications. Okay, Support and enablement opportunities for partners. So starting on the left, and when I send out this slide, this is these links I believe are clickable. So from a product perspective and hands-on perspective, we offer things like early field trials, not for resale program. We have dCloud. We have different product and roadmap briefings on a pretty frequent basis via our Partner Success 60 track of webinars. From a training perspective, we've got services and support, and we also have enablement. I'll primarily focus here on the enablement stuff since that's the stuff that I focus on. We have different courses inside of Black Belt for AI ready infrastructure. We have our virtual team events, usually once every 6 months, although that has been a little bit of a challenge in recent times. So we'll see when the next event is coming. We have a number of different workshops and executive briefings and so forth. And then we have sales motions, right? So we have accelerator events and we have assessments, we have test drive events, etc. So plenty of opportunities for partners to get up to speed along with customers in the AI realm. In addition to that, I wanted to kind of quickly highlight partner profitability examples. So if you're selling compute in terms of AI pods, you're looking at maybe the 10 to 20% profitability range. If you're also selling network along with that, networking traditionally is more profitable. So this would be the Nexus 9K lineup. You're looking at somewhere between 15 and 25% profit. So obviously, we want you guys to sell. We want you to sell both and make as much money as you can. Okay. Additional support and enablement for partners. I just wanted to call out a couple of details on the AI assessment. I believe there's a restriction here for SLED, if I remember correctly. I don't actually see it on the slide, but I think, oh, it is on the slide. It says it right here. Public sector is not eligible, so that would be SLED. This for a registered opportunity and an approved deal, this would provide a $7,500 payout back to you, the partner. So something to look into, and will help you get a better baseline as to what your customers' capabilities are, what kind of use cases they're looking to tackle. Okay, you do need to have a few prerequisites. Insight meets these requirements, so that's not a problem. And you guys do have your AI ready infrastructure specialization already. Okay, I included a couple of additional slides here at the end, so some key resources. Again, these are clickable links, so definitely check these out, right? Different opportunities to learn, earn, and act. So I'll leave these here for your reference. Partner success training and enablement. So I mentioned we have a partner success 60 partner facing webinars. I believe that this right here is the link that will take you there so you can sign up for all of our upcoming webinars. Differentiation from competitors. So this is an interesting video that we've created internal using some AI. So the faces that you see here are real, but when you watch the presentation, it's leveraging AI against a script. And I felt this particular video was helpful in terms of delineating exactly what it says here on the slide. Why Cisco UCS for AI workloads versus Dell and HPE. So a bit of competitive information here that I thought was helpful. And then finally, customer outcomes, right, which all centers around use cases. Our solutions will help support customers across many different verticals, many different industries. Some of the use cases that we support are listed here. We are in active development with a number of our DSI partners to be able to, I guess I would say, enable these different use cases for our partners. Certain partners are going to be in receipt of AI pod hardware. And so having the ability to deploy one or multiple of these use cases and swapping them out on the hardware for customer demos, I think is going to be an important capability in order to drive business. Okay, that's all I had lined up for today's presentation. As always, if you guys have any questions, any follow up, you need a deeper dive on anything in particular, then please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer your questions. Appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.